something interesting is sure to happen. Well, I think you ought to tell me who you are first. Mr. Rabbit? Then why did you ask the question?
Goodness, this is quite extraordinary.
Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?
But today is turning into the most curious adventure I have ever had.
Welcome, fellow travellers, learners and explorers. I'm JuJu Ellis, and thank you for tuning in yet again to another Alice in Wonderland podcast episode. Today, I'm joined by Maurice Schill. So Maurice is the founder and CEO of JuJu app, and he is on a mission to create positive workplace cultures using appreciation. So he's a passionate world citizen, a lifelong learner, and I hear that he's also a pretty keen kiteboarder as well. So I'm not sure what we'll touch on today, whether we'll get to the kiteboarding. But so let's get curious. Welcome, Maurice. How are you?
I'm really good. I just came back from a trip from Sydney, drove down actually. So we survived all the bushfires, but I'm really good.
Excellent. And so good to have you here. We, for our listeners, Maurice and I caught up back in September, I think it was, and we're just having a chat over a chai and a cup of tea. I think it was a green tea. I think you were fasting at the time.
Right.
Just around some of the work that he is doing, and it's quite fascinating and really empowering. And I thought we really need to talk about what he's doing on the podcast to allow people to understand, how you can help change culture in organizations. But before we dive into that, I've got a question that I ask all of my guests, and I don't know if you've heard of one of my podcasts before, but anyway, I'm going to ask you the question. So I want you to imagine that I am 7-year-old Alice from the wonderful story, Lewis's Carroll's story, Alice in Wonderland. And I'm skipping my way through Wonderland and I bump into you. And I look at you with my big, wondrous eyes and with a sense of curiosity, and I ask, who are you? Why are you here? Why are you in Wonderland? What is it that you're doing here? How would you answer that question to a 7-year-old girl? Why are you here on this planet and what are you doing?
I love that. Love that question. I think the first response would be, to be honest, I don't actually have a clue myself. Just figuring it out as you go along, as you go down the journey. But what I do know is that I'm here to share some positivity, leave it a little bit better than I found it, and along the way, just make more people have some smiles, have some laughs, enjoy life a bit more, enjoy work, and just focus on the good and the positive stuff in the world.
Wonderful. So let's see if we can do that through this episode of the podcast. Let's see if we can help you understand a little bit more why you're here and share some of that love, the positivity, and maybe a little bit of a few laughs here and there. So let's see if we can keep it lighthearted. That's not a promise to our listeners, but we're going to do our best, right? Bring a bit of joy into their life. So I'm really fascinated, and I'm sure our listeners are probably a bit curious as well around your role. So when I read out and introduced you, you're the founder and CEO of JuJu app. Talk to us. What is JuJu app?
So I guess the best way to start this is at the beginning. And this all came about because my younger brother, Julien, who I call JuJu, and we've got some French background, so in French it's JuJu. But we're in Australia, so we call it JuJu. And what he'd do is every time I'd do him a little favor, either we'd be out on the beach playing, or we'd be at a bar and I'm getting him a beer, he'd go, "Oh, here, 10 JuJu points for you. Have a JuJu point." And it was his silly way of saying thank you and saying, "Hey, I really appreciate that." And at first, it always made me feel good. I'm the older brother. But then it started picking up within our friends group, and especially during my dad's 50th, there was almost 100 people there, 3 generations from all around the world. and everyone started competing for JuJu points, doing nice things for Julien to get more JuJu points. And that's where I went, hold on, this is a weird concept. Like, what's going on? What is the implications of this? And that's when I suppose I had the first light bulb moment, if you want to call it that, and started thinking about how can this be applied to the wider world. And being a millennial and loving technology, I went, oh, well, let's build an app, right? That was the first sort of thing. Let's build an app and see how it goes. But then as I started thinking about it a bit more, I realized events like my dad's 50th only happen for people, well, maybe every 10 years, or, you don't get along with, you don't bring along a group of friends that close that often. And so I sort of felt that there wasn't going to be enough interaction. There wasn't going to be enough opportunity for people to really use it in that sort of public friendly form. But I still felt that there was something behind it that was quite powerful around that whole appreciation, and really telling people that, hey, I really love the fact that you did this, or, this meant something to me. And so I started looking for other ways to apply this. And as I was researching, I found some stuff around the workplace that was saying, and there's a few studies out there now, but what they were really saying is the thing that drives employees to quit, the number one thing, is that they feel underappreciated. And when I read that, it sort of went, oh, I just found a really interesting problem. And so I kept researching that and trying to understand company culture, employee engagement, job satisfaction. And the more I sort of got into that space, the more I realized, hey, this is actually a really great problem to solve. And it also fits what I need, because a company as a team, you spend a lot of time with these people, and you help each other out a lot. So the opportunity to appreciate each other is also there. And so I took that idea from my brother, and then through that research, and decided, well, let's start by focusing on businesses and helping them create better cultures, more positive cultures through appreciation.
Yeah. And I love that you're doing that, because appreciation is really a powerful tool, not just for employee engagement and culture, but have you found through the testing and through just observation, or even through your research, that when we give somebody a form of appreciation, which is we're grateful, we're showing gratitude towards somebody for something they've done, have you noticed what that does, or the flow-on effects for the person giving the JuJu, giving the appreciation? So what's the effects on that side for, just let's say I see you doing something great, I give you some appreciation, some JuJu points. How are those people feeling, the givers?
The givers, yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the science says that it reciprocates, so it feels as good to give appreciation as it does to receive it. Very much like giving a gift feels as good as receiving one. And I've sort of thought about that quite a bit in my own personal life, and taking it sort of away from work. But for example, with my fiance, when you do express that appreciation, what it feels like to me is almost releasing yourself from certain limitations, or something that you have to do. It's almost like and I don't like using the word sort of leveling the playing field, but it brings everything back into an equilibrium. And from that place, you can then continue to grow. And the other thing that I've noticed is that it creates reciprocity. The moment I do that, I express it, it immediately will come back, or quite often within a short time frame, people, oh, thank you for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate being able to share my message. And immediately through that, you might instinctively go, oh, I want to say something to that, and I want to say thank you back. And so it really creates a positive loop for both sides, and of course releases a whole bunch of dopamine and endorphins and all of the the happy chemicals in our brain, which of course is good for a whole range of other things as well.
Yeah, it releases all those feel-good chemicals, which is awesome.
That's right.
So I think it's really fascinating that a lot of the time, look, I spent 22 years in a corporate space, working in a corporation, and a lot of leaders and team members would, we would create rewards and recognition programs and all these sort of things, but doing it out of duty as opposed to doing it with a heartfelt, genuine appreciation. And I think there's a real difference in that, but also in what you're saying now, it's not just the person. We're not doing this for the person that we're giving the appreciation to feel good. It actually benefits both the giver and the receiver. So what have you been finding with the work you're doing in this space in relation to, I'm going to say, the old way of this rewards and recognition scheme? How is what you're finding different, and what sort of results are you seeing through what you're doing?
Well, I guess the good place to start is with the traditional rewards and recognition. And there's a variety of things, but generally it's if you do X well, if you get this many sales, you get Y. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's very much performance driven. And it's very much job driven. And it excludes all of the other stuff that people do and contribute to an organization, which is really a living thing. And the attitude that you bring to work, if you're always a downer and complaining about everything, that has an impact on others. In the same way, if you are always positive, and even when things go wrong, you're finding the light side of things and helping people overcome that, that is something that needs to be appreciated as well. And that's part of that. And that's probably the first thing I think that it changes, is that it becomes more inclusive. It's not just about the job and that professional person or the employee in that role, but about the person who's behind that, the person and that human who has feelings and emotions and desires and goals. And it takes a more holistic or bigger picture approach of, okay, this is about more than just saying, hey, you did a good job.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ones. The other one is it's almost contagious. And I think it's because there's that reciprocity. So when I start saying, thank you for helping me with this or that, or helping me find the bright side in my day when everything was going wrong, that creates reciprocity. And at first, when I started, I was looking at it very much from a sort of two-way communications, or based on an interaction or something that happened. But what I've realized is it's actually much more dynamic, and it's almost a network. And that I might thank you for something you did really well, but you'll go, hey, but also actually these people helped me do that. And then those people see that and they go, well, it wasn't just me. And it creates this network of appreciation that can become quite contagious.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you said there it's contagious, because as somebody who's not appreciating, and somebody who does turn up in the office that's got like a bad attitude, but they continually do that, it becomes part of their personality trait, and they're continuing to do that, that also is contagious as well. But here we are with what you're focusing on, is how can we bring more positivity and make and really have a shift in culture. So talk to us a little bit about the app itself. So you're a millennial, you've got technology on your side. How does this app work? So if I'm a boss, a CEO, a business owner, and I'm really struggling with culture, why would I come to you, and how would your app help?
So what we do, and perhaps in the future this might change, but currently, and I think the easiest way to understand it is it's based on tribes. So each company is a tribe, and it's a closed group of people that all get an account that they can log into. And on that account, they can give anyone in their tribe a JuJu, or multiple people, right? It might be based on a team project or something, and then say what it's for, what it did for them. And we do try and really focus on helping people not just say, hey, thank you for doing that, but thank you for doing that because this is what it's done to me and how it's impacted me, to really communicate a bit more behind that, because that is a really important part. But once that happens, of course, that person then, or those people, receive that JuJu. They can read it, they can respond to it and comment on it. And as I was saying, oh, thank you, but thank you also for doing these things, or I couldn't have done it without you. But all of that also gets shared, and because it's digital, we can share it on a feed that people would at first sort of go, oh, well, it's very social media-esque, right? It's just posts. And in some degree, there is that similarity. But one of the nice things is it's all positive stuff, right? So it's almost a guilty pleasure of mine as I'm doing some of the analysis, and I just keep scrolling through it. I'm looking, I'll look at what the last week's JuJus were, and then I just find myself to continue scrolling, even though I don't know many of those people, what the projects were about. And I just go, oh, this is really cool because there's so much positivity. And that if the office sets it up correctly, they generally share it on a TV or something. And I was just up in Sydney speaking to some of our customers there, and they have a big TV in their lunchroom, and it's always on there. And people just go, you know, when I come in the morning, I come and make my coffee, and I check out what's been going on there, or at lunch, and it's sort of always a reminder. And I think that part is really important because it encourages other people, it helps other people see all of the stuff which otherwise is invisible. And it also encourages people to do that. It goes, oh, well, my friends are doing it, so I'm going to do it. Which makes it much easier to get everyone involved in it. And it's no longer just the responsibility of the team leader or the manager, but it becomes something everyone wants to engage in. And again, it comes back to that contagious thing. And that's really the core of the app. Now there's we haven't built any individual incentives in. It's something I spent a lot of time thinking about when I first set it up. So an incentive would be something like, if I have 100 JuJu points, then I can buy an iTunes voucher. And to me, there was a couple of things wrong with that. One, it was going back to that traditional rewards and recognition, which is if I do X, I get Y. But it also encourages people to engage in, I guess, selfish behaviors or self-serving added behaviors, which is, I've got you as a friend, so let's just give each other 100 JuJu points, and then we can both have an iTunes voucher.
Yeah.
And it might not be meaningful, so people tend to game the system if there's something in it for them.
Yeah.
So there's none of that going on. It's very much focused on the actual act of appreciation and the act of receiving it and the act of being part of that. However, we've also created team incentives. So as a tribe, as the company, you'd say, okay, well, we're 50 people. So over the next month, we want to achieve, let's say, 1 JuJu each. So average it out, say about 200. And if we do that, then let's all go and do something fun together, or let's do something that is meaningful to our culture. And for some businesses, that might be, hey, let's donate $500 to the charity that we support, or let's go out on Friday afternoon, knock off early, and we'll all go out to the pub, and it'll be on the company, right? Depending on what works for those people. And it is an incentive, but it's a team incentive. And so people still have to come together to achieve that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how it works. And then, of course, because it's all data in the end, you can start learning more about yourself and the relationships you have with people who you've been giving JuJus to, who's been giving them to you, what about. And for managers as well, understanding, hey, who are the people who are feeling left out? Who are the people who are not getting any appreciation or not giving? And it's not an opportunity to take out the stick and go, you must appreciate people more, but an opportunity to have a conversation and sit down and going, is this reflective of how you feel? Or what are the challenges? What's the resistance there to using it? And that often uncovers some other issues that should be dealt with anyways, but previously no one knew about. And that's sort of the after effect and then it really comes down to the business, to the leadership to decide what they want to do with that. But the opportunity to continue to grow and improve the culture and the relationships is there as well.
Yeah, I can see just by listening to you and explaining how it works, how this could really be impactful on an organization's culture. So, you know, you walk into some organizations and they do have TV screens up and they're playing the news, which is full of, we know what's full of the news. There's very rarely anything positive or uplifting coming through our news feeds. And to be able to sit there and have your lunch in a lunchroom or see something in a reception of a business, even if you're a client sitting in the reception of a business, seeing the business you're engaged with praising each other for their work on a screen is empowering. It's great. It's great marketing as well. So there are so many other benefits for this appreciation that you're building, and it becomes a muscle, I think, too. The more people do it on the app, you might find that when they're outside of the workplace, they're starting to appreciate the person who is, you know, checking them out at Woolies or Coles or the supermarket. They might be starting to appreciate more the person who makes their coffee in the morning, or the Uber driver, or whatever it might be. It starts to have that flow on, that contagious effect, and it becomes part of their personality, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely a muscle. I mean, that's I've learned that personally over now a bit more than a year. Really focusing on it, I realized it's like so many other things. In a way, it's a habit and it's something you practice. And as you practice, it becomes better. You become better at it. But it's not so much becoming better at expressing it. That's the hard part, because that you can pretty quickly learn and sort of understand, okay, this is the formula to express it properly. But what's really hard is finding the opportunities to, right? To see and say, wow, that's the lady at the checkout today is smiling, you know, instead of being like, and then you go, wow, well, that's something special. That's something extra. And unless you train that and you sort of start looking for, when do I have opportunities? You don't realize these things. And it's an opportunity to share that positivity and create more of that contagion, I guess, in the sense that contagion is positive. But yeah, it is definitely a muscle, and it's something, the more you do it, the more you become aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've got a question here that's probably a little bit, it could potentially be outside your realm of expertise. So I know you have been looking into appreciation, and especially in the workforce. How does this play out, or could your app be used by a family? How would it, because I'm just thinking, you know, imagine a family who are potentially bickering a lot, or maybe you've got kids that don't get along. And imagine having your TV screen on with, you know, these little JuJus popping up every now and then. So is there a way that this can be applied in people's personal lives, either with the app or without the app, to help start to change, I'm going to say, the culture of the family?
Yeah, I mean, there's technically no reason you couldn't go up there and set up your family right now. And it's up because we see a benefit coming for companies larger than 10. Anything under that, if you only, you know, if you're 4 or 5 or anywhere up to 10, you can just set it up and use it like that. And then people have a TV or one of those new displays that, you know, shows the family photos and stuff like that. You could connect it to that as well. So there is no reason it couldn't happen. The reason I didn't focus on that was I guess what's the incentive or the inherent benefit, the motivation, I guess, to use that for in that environment. Of course, people want to have a better family culture, and they might set it up and then they might start using it for a week or two. But from a long-term perspective, I wasn't sure how that, like, if there was going to be enough incentive to keep using it just because they want to do it. but perhaps that's fine as well, because after 2 weeks of doing it, it becomes natural and you don't have to send it on the app anymore. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's in fact any place where people come together, there's no reason it shouldn't work. It could work in classrooms or universities and schools, in old people homes. So it was another thing we actually considered, but then we realized maybe they're going to have a bit more trouble with the technology side of it. So there's, yeah, realistically, anywhere where there's people coming together and sharing and helping each other, you could apply it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got such a positive ramification in any situation. And just, you know, thinking of families, you could start, or even schools, start to build that appreciation muscle at an early age and strengthen it and build it into your muscle memory, which is amazing. And I love what you're saying there about using this. I know organizations are a great place, but we see now a lot more on social media, especially Facebook has Facebook groups, and things like that, where you could potentially have a group of people that could start to share more appreciation with each other, you know, how somebody has made them feel, and or what they've noticed they've done for them, to really show that gratitude and appreciation. So talk to us a little bit more around how gratitude and appreciation's actually changed and impacted your personal life. So what have you noticed about yourself mentally, physically, emotionally? What's changing because you've built this muscle?
Yeah, I it's taken a while, but it definitely is getting easier. And the best way I've found to explain it actually comes from the meditation app that I use, and it's the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. Anyone who is into meditation, I highly recommend it. But he has a lesson in there, and I think it's called The Last Time. And I just love that way of thinking about it. And as I've been focusing on appreciation and helping people think about it, um, in their own personal lives, and trying to figure out how do I appreciate the people in my life more, it's started to I start coming to this realization more and more that in every interaction, this could potentially be the last time I'm doing that. Because maybe I might, maybe they're going to move to across the world and we might not have another drink together, or this might potentially be the last phone call, because whatever happens. And once you get into that space of realizing this is a special moment and there is something to appreciate in it, even if it's a terrible moment, then you can find always the positive. And that's probably the biggest impact it's had on me. And it's much more internal actually, and has a much bigger impact on my own happiness and my own joy and living and fulfillment uh, than it does to everyone else. But because I'm in that space more often, I can then share that more often, and I can spread that love and the joy and the happiness more, because even in a shitty situation, I can then say, well, actually, it's not that bad right now. Let's focus on this. And I think that's for me been the biggest impact, and it's still continuing to grow and evolve. But it makes me really happy to think that that is an outcome of doing this, of thinking about, okay, what's the great thing about the situation, and how do I express that to the other person? It has a holistic impact on your joy and happiness.
Yeah. And I love what you said then too around, you seem to have more a sense of fulfillment in your life. And it's a really simple thing to do. It costs nothing. You don't need any resources. All you need is observation and the ability to speak. And you don't even need that ability to speak. If you can write, if you can type, there are ways that you can share your appreciation. And just this simple thing is bringing more fulfillment into your life. And if we think about, what's going on in the world at the moment, there's a lot of complexity, a lot of bit of chaos. So being able to build that muscle and sit back and think about, well, what can I appreciate with what's going on? Now, you mentioned earlier that you came back from Sydney, you managed to, at the moment, when we're recording this right now, there's bushfires right throughout New South Wales, and you managed to, get home without being affected by that. So there's just this little, in that sentence that you said, that when you first started the conversation, there was already some appreciation coming out in you're building that. You're building, even though it's quite horrific, you can find something to be thankful and be grateful and appreciative of. And I think perhaps we need to do more of that as a species, is find things to be really grateful for. And I love that you mentioned, it is a muscle. It's a muscle that we can build, and we can practice doing this, and making it helps us feel so much better. And I think and as you said at the beginning, there's a way that we can bring more joy, not just to the people that we're appreciating, but how it filters back into us. One thing that you also mentioned there was, and I think some people find this a little bit difficult to do, was, when we have a situation that potentially is not going the way that we want. And you mentioned that, having the ability to find the good in a situation and then be appreciative of that good. So can you help people understand how that is done? How can you find the good in every situation?
I think there's lots of different tricks to get there, and I think essentially it's about finding something to be grateful for. You could have had the worst meeting, everything went wrong with a potential client, and your brain is of course wired to sort of go, well, all of these things are wrong, and so it's now giving you that experience. All you need to do to change that is go, well, all right, that's gone wrong, but I'm still alive. I still have a house. And just you could start listing those things off. And at first you'll be like, oh, well, I have a house, so what? But then you keep going, and by pushing through, eventually the neurochemistry changes again, and you end up going, and it might be the seventh thing that you go, hey, I really, appreciate that thing. I'm so happy that I have that. And then all of a sudden you're gone, and you can see that the positive side of that. And I think that's one way to do it, which is just to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
And once you're in the positive state of mind, you can then revisit whatever happened. Let's call it a minor traumatic event. And sort of go, oh, actually, yes, all of that happened, and it was a really shitty meeting, to come back to that example. But out of that, this is what I've learned, or this is what it's taught me. And you can then go back and sort of heal that and be grateful for that event or that moment. But you can't do that when you're feeling anxious or stressed or fearful or angry. You have to first get yourself out of that situation, and then take the time to actually reflect on it. And I think when you do that long enough, I'm not a neuroscientist, but my best guess is that you create the wiring, which eventually it happens so quickly that you don't even notice. And something happens and you go, actually, it's not that bad. And here's something that I can learn out of it. And it short circuits that, and you immediately sort of go, well, it's shit, but I'm still enjoying this moment.
Yeah. Even though you're not a neuroscientist, that was really top-notch advice there. Because I've been fascinated in studying human behavior for quite some time now, and a lot of people get really caught up in this is happening to me, it's negative, it's a shitty meeting, or it's whatever it might be, I've missed a deadline, and we start getting really caught up in all these things. At the end of the day, don't matter. But when you're in the moment, as you said, it's really quite difficult to move yourself out of that. And sometimes there are just a few little tricks we can do to at least move ourselves. Because when we're stressed, there's all these chemicals and all these things going on in our body. And the greatest gift we have is our breath. So we can breathe a little slower, start to down regulate, move ourselves out of stress, then come back and look at it from a very subjective point of view, from a higher point of view, to then, as you're saying, find that gold, find that good in it. And something that I know you and I spoke about when we caught up, and something that people forget is that every situation is on a really long continuum. There's one end is going to be really negative, where the dire can happen, and the other end of the situation is where there's gold, and there's, you know, it could be the best situation, and you're going to find yourself in life anywhere on that spectrum. But if you're down in the dire end, you've got to know that there is actually good. We're just not focusing on it. Maybe we haven't been trained, as you're saying, trained ourselves enough to be able to see that automatically. Maybe at first it takes a little bit of time, but it's always there.
I think, and it's something I struggled with at first, because I didn't fully understand that it was a muscle in a way, and you train it, and you can't expect to get out of that situation and see the positive if it is a really strong or a powerful traumatic event, right? Anything that sort of sets us into that zone of fear, stress, anxiety, I'm going to call it a traumatic event. If it's a really strong one, and it really overtakes us, we've never practiced this before, we're not going to be able to get out of that in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or even 30 minutes. It's going to take a couple of days, or sometimes months and years, depending on how much time we spend on trying to heal that. And I think even at work, so I know someone who, and I'm not going to say who, and so I don't incriminate anyone, but they get really anxious. A phone call or a message, and the world is about to end because everything could go wrong now, and they get really anxious. And if you can't overcome that, if you can't overcome the little things where you're brushing your teeth and the toothpaste falls off of your toothbrush right before you put it in, you're like, oh, and that's a minor traumatic event because it's annoying, but it's really easy to overcome that. You can sort of go, oh, well, let's have a laugh about it, and then life goes on. And finding the little moments where there's these little traumatic events and slowly building up to that, and building that muscle eventually allows people to overcome the bigger stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's very related to the theories around flow as well, where you want to have the right amount of challenge and skill. I think it's exactly that. If the challenge of that traumatic event is too big for the amount of skill you have in overcoming that, you're just going to get crushed, and it's going to make everything worse.
Yeah.
To me, what I find is recommending people do as many of these small practices as possible on a daily basis is going to eventually pay off.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant advice. Just start small with what you have, with those little traumatic toothpaste falls off the toothbrush moments. Laugh at it. Just start to train yourself to see the fun and the humor and the joy in all aspects of life. And then if ever you are faced with something that's quite huge and traumatic, you've built the muscle to be able to see the gold in it, and potentially not have it affect you as much as what it might have in the past. It's not to say this is a magic pill that stops you feeling stressed, anxious, or even depressed. This is a way for you to start building that muscle, and giving people JuJus and actually giving appreciation outwards is a really good way to start building that momentum as well. So what's happening for you now? What's your main focuses now, and where are you heading with the app, and what's going on in that realm?
So I was just in Sydney to finish off the 3-month beta trial for one of our customers, to really understand, because I've always known, well, there's something around this, but I wasn't sure if it was going to work. Now I have a lot of certainty that it has a lot of impact, and some of them we might not even know of yet. And so, having completed that, the next focus for me is to now go out to more businesses, to more people who are in that space, and really at first just share that message, and to share the power that appreciation can have in all respects of life. And through that, hopefully find the people who go, hey, you know what? I resonate with that. I want that to be part of my life. and I want to introduce that into the workplace I'm in, into my team, into my business, or to share that with their audience. And to me, that's the biggest priority now at the moment, is just going, okay, I've figured something out here, and then let's go out there and make it something everyone knows about. And then additionally to that, sort of more operationally, is starting to actually grow the team as well, and find people who are going to help me on that journey in different aspects and different regards, which is, I guess, priority number 2 for me, because at some point 24 hours do run out, and I do like to sleep a lot. So got to keep things balanced, and those are really the 2 big priorities for us at the moment. And now that I have so much more feedback and insight into how people are using it, I'm going to be spending my Christmas break actually updating some of the features in the platform to make it more dynamic and reflect much more everything we've discussed about appreciation today, actually.
Yeah, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So a couple of questions just popped up while you were talking there, because you've been on this amazing journey from inception of the idea at your dad's 50th, having this idea, wow, there's something in this, to now building it out to an app. Then approaching, finding people to beta test it, marketing it, all these things that you've done along the way. What do you think's been your greatest, I know there's lots of lessons, what do you think would be your greatest lesson from the journey of idea inception to actually starting to get some traction?
I think probably that worry is just completely overrated. Um, I guess the amount of time I sort of brooded and sat there and go, oh, I need to really do this right, and oh, is it going to work? Is it not? Is this the right way? From when I first started reaching out to people and going into the sales side of it, to even earlier when I was building the platform and making all of the decisions, going, should I go to, and just being in the space of worry so often, because I wanted it to do it right. And I now I look at it and I go, that worry wasn't necessary. Like, I was already doing all of the things that were right and that I knew how to do and that would have helped me. And the worry just added this burden which wasn't there. And to be honest, it could have also, I could have come to this period now, and the groups that tested it would have said, hey, look, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really help out. That would have still been fine, because I would have learned so many of the other things, all of the other 10 million lessons that I've collected and it would have still been a win.
Yeah.
And that worry to go, oh, it's going to fail, is, again, it's the instinct, the animal brain programmed in some way, but it's just not necessary. So that was probably the biggest.
Well, great advice, because there's so many people out there that have ideas and worry stops them from moving forward. And hearing from someone who's traveled that journey and understands that the worry is, don't worry about the worry, right?
Yeah, you've got enough things to worry about, so don't worry about worrying.
Let worrying go, which is sometimes easier said than done. And you're right, we do have these instincts, we have these internal systems that want to protect us, and one of the ways it does it makes us worry about things. But in the end, you've found ways, it works out in the end. Like, you're still alive, you're still breathing, you have a roof over your head, and so forth. Now, another thing that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on was, you mentioned that you there's 24 hours in a day, you need to put somebody on, and you love your sleep. So how do you find balance in this startup phase? How are you balancing the need to do so much? You've got a very small team of people around you. How are you balancing your life out to make sure your well-being is looked after?
As I said, sleep is number one. I do. Sleep is more flexible than it has to be 8 hours a week. There can be times when you can close that to being 4 hours, but then you need to always catch up. I think that's the most important. And then the other things that have really helped me is, one, actually taking a break from doing all of that stuff and worrying and being in that space and going, you know what, I shouldn't be doing this. Or if you listen to all of the podcasts and books, and they're like, you need to be working 60 hours a week or 70 hours a week, and you don't have time for friends and all of this. Yeah, you should probably cut that down, but there's very few things that are as powerful as going, you know what, it's 4:30, I'm gonna close my laptop, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm gonna go out and have a dinner with a friend or have a couple of drinks and just forget about it, do something else. And it could be that, it could be going out to do exercise. I love kite surfing. It's one of the best ways to clear my head. But like taking that moment and going, okay, it's not, I need to stop. And to be honest, that was my fiance Ellie who sort of pushed that onto me. Otherwise, I would have just kept flogging myself until I'd have fallen over. So that's a really important thing. And the last one is just doing something in the morning to get you into the right state of mind. Whether for me that's meditation, doing a bit of exercise, having a cold shower, and then reading a bit. And if I do those things, my day is going to be great. It's going to be productive. Everything's going to work out. If I don't do that once, I'll be all right. If I don't do that 2 or 3 times, my days start getting weird and disorganized, and things don't start working out as well. So that's what works for me. And for different people, it might be different things. But just to get into that positive space, or the productive or whatever you need in the morning, sort of go, okay, well, here's a reset. It's the morning time. This is the day. I'm gonna make the most out of it. And doing that as many days as possible in a week.
Yeah, awesome. And it sounds like you've really found your morning ritual that sets you up to be able to get into the zone and get some work done, which is amazing. And I encourage our listeners to do the same, as in find like what's your morning ritual to help set you up as well, because you'll be really appreciative to yourself. Your future self will thank you for taking the time to put that balance back into your life. Thank you so much for sharing what you do, because as I said, there's a lot of people who are either considering going out on their own or out on their own, or in a startup phase or working for a startup. And it's hard work. I've got clients at the moment who are in startup phase, and they're getting to the stage of burnout. And one of the things that you mentioned there that is really, really, really powerful, and there's science actually and research to back this up, is the releasing, the letting go, the putting it down and going for a surf, going for a walk. It actually is more beneficial to you, because it allows your brain to do all the stuff it's been trying to do while you've been sitting there consciously hacking away. So it's a really important part of the success puzzle. So thank you. So for our listeners, if they would like to get hold of you, whether it is to talk to you about what you're doing, to get their teams on board, to use the JuJu app or anything like that, what's the best way that they can find you?
Yep. So JuJuApp.io is our website. They can actually have a look at what it looks like. If they want to play around with it, they can actually set up a tribe, invite a couple of people, play around with it. But I'm also on LinkedIn. It's a great way if they just look up my name. There is another Maurice Schill. It's my dad. You will see he looks older. So that's not me. And on Facebook as well. So we have a JuJu app page and my profile as well. And so connecting on any of those is probably the best way to reach me.
Yeah. Awesome. And thank you so much for your time. And I really encourage our listeners to reach out, have a look at the JuJu app, see where you can use it in your workplace, or if you've got a community or a school or something like that where you think we could probably have a bit of a shift in culture, sounds like, and based on a lot of research, appreciation could be the key that opens the door to a better culture, regardless of what industry you're in. So thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your story, and sharing your app and your realization around the power of appreciation. I absolutely love this, and I love the work you're doing. Thank you for the work you're doing, because you're starting to help the world become a better place, because we're going to appreciate more people. So are there any final words of advice, or anything you'd like our listeners to hear, anything that left unsaid?
Well, firstly, just to reciprocate and to engage in the contagious act of appreciation. Thank you for having me on the podcast and allowing me to share the message. I prefer these sort of forums and conversations much more, because you can actually have proper conversation about it and really share and get into things. So I really enjoy that, and really enjoy the opportunity, appreciate the opportunity to do that. And hopefully there will be someone out there, even if there's just one person who gets at least one thing out of it, then it was all worth it. Last words of advice. I don't like the whole advice thing, because it worked for me. It doesn't mean it will work for others. And one thing is really hard to do. But I think the best thing that someone once told me is just smile more. Funny New Zealander guy. And I think he was onto something there, is just actively put on a smile more often, and it changes a lot of things.
Yeah, beautiful. So thank you so much. And everyone, hope it gets contagious. Those that are watching, you can see Maurice's wonderful smile right now. There you go. You say the word smile, you start smiling. And also start appreciating the people in your life a lot more. So thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Today is turning into the most curious adventure I've ever had.